Good evening, everyone. My name is Jalen McKee Rodriguez, and I have the privilege of serving as councilman for District 2. Today, we're here because our utility, CPS Energy, is in need of assistance from you, the ratepayer. This has been a challenging year for all of us, and in the middle of a pandemic and following Winter Storm Uri, it's very challenging for CPS to ask us for this rate increase. But I understand, and they understand, that it is even more challenging for you to be asked to accept the potential rate increase, especially amidst the uncertainty. It's no secret that I've challenged the idea of a rate increase, and I've been very critical. Yes, and we can be transparent here. When I've received calls about this ask, there are a number of concerns that get brought up. We've seen reports of lavish spending on dinners by executives. We've had, very little movement on the transition away from Spruce Coal Power Plant. There's been concern about how much our bills are already and how hard they are to pay during the pandemic. And so before we move forward, we need to see a commitment to a more equitable rate structure, meaning those users who use more should pay more, while our residential customers who use the least should pay the least. That being said, while I lean no, I want to hear your feedback, and I want CPS to hear your feedback. And I'll be honest, from what I've heard from my council colleagues, I believe there is a strong possibility that this increase will pass. So I want to know, what can CPS improve on to earn that increase? And what are your expectations of them? I want to thank you all so much for being here, for listening to the presentation by CPS Energy, and for your consideration of this request. And tonight I will be all ears. Today we'll have our interim CEO of CPS Energy, Rudy Garza, who's here in good faith to express the need for an increase and to share the progress and changes we can expect of their service. And we all know he stepped up and was selected to lead CPS at a very challenging time. This is not necessarily his will, but the result of years of built-up need. So I would like all comments to remain about the issue, not of his leadership, but of the rate increase and your expectations moving forward. I don't believe he expects to change your mind, but he does expect to receive feedback on your expectations of CPS. He is a messenger and the bearer of some very challenging news, but he is a human, just as we all are. So let's please remain respectful. I want to say thank you all again so much for being here. Thank you, Rudy, and I look forward to your presentation. I now want to introduce my council colleague from District 3, Councilwoman Phyllis Virgran.
You're on mute, Councilwoman.
Thank you. And I'll be turning off my screen because my video is very choppy. I'm sorry, residents, but as many of my south side and southeast residents know, it's just a kind of challenge we have here on the south side, and one of the issues that I am addressing in terms of the digital divide. I'm a proud representative of the south and the southeast side of our our city of San Antonio. I want to thank my council colleagues, District 2 Councilman Jalen McKee Rodriguez for today's joint town hall, and the CPS staff for facilitating it. We were hoping to have this in person, but unfortunately we couldn't. I want to thank all the residents who are joining us this evening as we hear from CPS regarding this rate increase. I want to thank the residents who have reached out via email and surveys and have shared their feelings and responses to this rate increase. This is here so that you can participate in a live setting with CPS and ask the questions. We have had a series of B-session meetings in which I brought up questions regarding the future of affordability programs and the rate structure. I definitely have an opinion on where we need this rate to go, but today I'm here to listen to you, the residents of San Antonio, and your thoughts. The pandemic has left many working families struggling to pay their utility bills brought on by the COVID-19. As a result, I want to assure those families dealing with financial hardships that my top priority is to make sure that both CPS and COSA continue to provide direct assistance to their customers, the low income and the seniors in particular. And I do want to hear, and I do want you to know that I will continue to be the voice on the dais when we take up this item on Thursday. This is a difficult time. There's no good time for a rate increase to come. but this time is particularly challenging. But as we move this city forward, I hope that you ask questions and understand what we need to do to continue that we get a quality utility service here in San Antonio. With that, I want to turn it over to back to Jalen and the rest of the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Rudy, I think we are good to go. The floor is yours.
Very good. Well, first off, let me thank Councilmember Jalen McKee Rodriguez. Let me thank Councilwoman Phyllis Villagran for hosting the town hall this evening. I prefer these to be in person because I enjoy the interaction with the community. And so certainly the results of the Omicron variant of the coronavirus certainly have dampened our ability to get out. But these opportunities still exist. And so I just appreciate the opportunity to come here and answer whatever questions you have. And I know there are a number of questions we'll get to. I'm going to try to make my comments brief. Cory will provide the meat of the presentation, and then we'll answer as many questions as you can. I want to start off by just reminding anyone on the call, if you have any need for assistance from CPS Energy in terms of bill payment plans, in terms of available funding for utility assistance, I very much appreciate the City of San Antonio and our council members for the $20 million allocation that we received from the ARPA funding that the city was able to procure at the federal level. We're going to be able to help close to 20,000 customers with direct bill payment assistance to get you caught up. And so anybody who is eligible for our affordability discount program, or even if you're not on it, if you're eligible for it, if you're somewhere in the neighborhood of 125% of the federal poverty limit, you are eligible for ARPA funding. So all you have to do, whether you call your council members and they can reach out to us directly, or you can call us directly at 210-353-2222, and we'll be able to help ensure that you get the assistance that is available for you. And certainly we just encourage you to reach out to us for anything you might need that relates to CPS Energy's service. I want to start off by really focusing in on the fact that it's been 8 years. It's been 8 years, and I was involved at that last request, since CPS Energy's come in to our city owner regulator asking for consideration of additional revenue to do our jobs. In that 8 years, we've worked really hard to be as efficient a utility as we can possibly be to provide you with the service that you expect in as affordable a manner as possible. We've worked hard to cut roughly a little over $900 million of cost out of our system that just allowed us to really get to this point. A couple of years ago, we had the pandemic started, and we did the right thing at that time to stop disconnects on our customers as we knew you were home. A lot of folks, we were a heavy hospitality industry here. A lot of folks were impacted by the hotels and the restaurants not being as full as they once were. And so we did the right thing. And over that 2 years, we've accrued somewhere in the neighborhood of $130 million worth of past due balances by our customers that we've continued to work with our customers on. Then 10 months ago, Winter Storm Uri happened. And on top of, the past due balances that certainly have impacted the amount of revenue coming in to do the job that you expect us to do day in and day out, we had all the impacts of Winter Storm Uri. And so we spent the last 10 months really, in a dialogue with the community about what we need to do better the next time we find ourselves in an emergency situation like that. CPS Energy is exponentially more prepared today than maybe we were back in February. Our power plants are more weatherized. Our system for shedding load has been improved upon so that you have a better experience next time. And our communication efforts next time will certainly be more robust than they were previously. Many of you probably have gotten text messages, emails voicemails from us when weather's coming in to let you know weather's coming in, and that, you know, there may be the possibility for outages. And so that's the kind of proactive work that we're really trying to get to in terms of dealing with these major winter storm events. Back in August, we've actually been talking about a rate request for the last 3 years. Obviously, the pandemic was not the right time to consider that, so we pushed that off for a couple of years. But we really, back in August, we're looking at our financials, and it's been real difficult to project strong financials for CPS Energy, you know, in the coming years because of all the impacts of the conditions that we've been under. And so, you know, we had to start a conversation with our board about the need for an increase. We started at a number around 10%. You know, that was kind of just a placeholder back then because it had been so long since we had an increase. But as we talked to the city of San Antonio, again, our regulator and the city staff, we really started to focus in on just those costs that we really, really needed to shore us up financially, to give us what we need for the next couple of years. And then we'll come back in the future as our conditions change to, you know, to have more conversations with the city about how CPS Energy's financials are, you know, are looking. And so with that, you know, that led us to where we are today. We're asking for a 3.85% base rate increase, which Cory will provide some additional context on. We're also asking for 0.8% to pay for fuel expenses that were incurred that are just and reasonable and that we've paid. Those costs have to be passed on to our customers before the end of the year because there's some financial consequences for the city and for CPS Energy if we don't deal with those in a meaningful manner. That equates to roughly, you know, around 4.5% total bill impact for average customers is around $5.10. And that will allow us to pay for some key investments in some key areas that are all directly related to the service that we provide you. We want to keep our, you know, our ability to serve you where it needs to be. We want to make the investments in our system to ensure that things like Winter Storm Uri don't happen again in the future. So a lot of resiliency related investments. And this is, you know, as everybody else's costs have gone up, so have CPS Energy's. You know, we're paying today's prices and we're collecting revenues based on yesterday's, you know, costs. And so that discrepancy is pretty, you know, we're earning 75 cents on the dollar of what's going, you know, what we're actually having to pay when a new customer comes to town or, you know, to do maintenance on our system that's necessary to keep the power on. And so there's a gap there. And that gap, what we're trying to do is just bring that gap you know, a little tighter so that we have what we need to serve our customers. And so I just want to reassure the community that this is not an ask we take lightly. I'm sorry to be here, you know, asking our community for more dollars, but, you know, we've gotten to the point where there's nothing else to cut. So, you know, we're trying to be thoughtful and reasonable in our request, recognizing it's a difficult time for everyone. Quite frankly, and certainly I understand that. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to turn it over to Cory, who will give you some additional context, and then we will get right to the questions. Thank you.
Great. Good evening. Thank you, Rudy. I want to check and make sure my screen is sharing. Can you all hear me?
You're good, Cory.
Right, great. Thank you, Councilman. Awesome. Very good. Well, thank you, Rudy, and good evening, everyone. Do appreciate the opportunity to speak to both District 2 and 3 tonight. So like Rudy said, I'm going to step you through some slides very briefly just to talk about our request, and then we'll save as much time as possible for questions at the end. One of the first things that we often start with, because we can't go anywhere without talking about winter storm and our preparations for that. So I wanted to begin there and talk about the things we are doing relative to that. The very first thing that's worth mentioning is this kind of icon talking about fighting for our customers. We've all seen the headlines about the $1 billion that we were charged for fuel during the winter storm week. I want to be very clear, and we'll emphasize this, and Rudy mentioned it. We haven't paid the full $1 billion. We've only paid $418 million of that. The remaining $587 we haven't paid, and we're not asking any of our customers to recover any of those dollars for that. Of the $418 that we have paid, we haven't started recovering any of those dollars yet either. So I'll talk more about how that process will work, but I want to be very clear on what was charged, what's been paid, and what's been recovered, because we get a lot of questions around that, and we're happy to answer more later. The other thing I'll mention are these two icons that talk about improving their grid management and hardening critical infrastructure. Well, what does that really mean? Let's talk about our power plants. We all know we own power plants to generate power for our community. We have done a number of things that we can control on our power plants for this winter. Specifically, a lot of steps around freeze protection. Insulating some additional pipes that may have frozen, adding in additional heaters. We spent almost $2 million just over the summer to do those enhancements. We also brought in an external third party just to look at those improvements and validate that we were doing the right thing. And that was very helpful. We also increased our storage of natural gas. Natural gas is one of the fuels that we use, and we increased the amount of storage available, again, in the event that there's a shortage upstream with natural gas suppliers who we don't control, but who supply us when needed. We also did, we moved up, maintenance on our power plants. If you think about what you're used to experiencing, summer is the hottest time in Texas, and we want all of our power plants to work. So, like you would with your car, you take it in for an oil change or whatever. We were doing that during what typically was an off season during the summer. We moved up our schedule for doing that work so that come, now and in February, we have all of our plants available and ready to go for this winter. So those are some of the steps we've been taking. In terms of dealing with the outage, one thing that's important to recognize is the state of Texas dictates to us and other utilities if they need to have an outage, right? If we need to reduce the amount of power to the whole state. So the state of Texas instructed us to reduce, CPS Energy's amount of power. So we had to, we were forced to do outages. So that's one thing we can't control. But what we can control is how we rotate those outages to customers. And so that is something that we've spent a lot of time working on and effectively increased our capability by an extra third to allow outages to rotate to more of our customer base, so that folks who may have experienced outages for say 3 full days, like I did, your experience will be different. You may experience an outage of 15 minutes or 30 minutes, rotate back on for a few hours and so forth, kind of what you would expect. And then the last thing that I'll mention is we've done a lot of collaboration with the city leadership and with our sister utility SAWS. Obviously, it's critical that we ensure that SAWS can provide water to the city. We've worked with them to identify their critical pumping stations to ensure that even in the event of an outage, we are ensuring that the critical pumps across the city are working. And we've also improved our communication. Rudy talked about all the text messages that we've already been sending in advance of just the weather we've had so far. That is something we are focused on. We heard loud and clear we need to improve our alignment with the communication of the city, and also to ensure that we're being much more proactive with our customers directly. So those are a lot of the things that we've been taking in the near term, and I'll speak about the additional investments that we're prepared to do going forward as part of this rate request. So the next slide here, Rudy he mentioned earlier actually that we have over the last decade pulled out over $900 million in savings. That's been pretty instrumental in allowing us not to change our price. So while things got more expensive for us to invest in, we were able to not charge our customers any higher prices because we were able to reduce costs over time. But there's been a lot of pressures, as we talked about, over the last 8 years. Large growth in this city, it's required a lot of investment, aging technology. A lot of that technology you don't hear a lot about, but it's the backbones for how we manage the entire system, and how you interface with us as a customer, how we manage bills and things of that nature. So a lot of that technology in some cases is over 20 years old. If you think about technology that was that you used 20 years ago. It kind of gives you an illustration of how old that infrastructure is. And there's been a whole lot of increase over the last 8 years of cyber risk. That is something that all of us probably feel, and that's because we have critical assets to the state. There's a lot of investment in technology and protection of that technology. That's part of this request as well. And so Rudy alluded to this. There are two parts of this rate request. One's this base rate increase that, as Rudy mentioned, was 3.85%. That's about $73 million of total revenue. Just for context, and I don't know how many folks realize this, but CPS Energy, we project almost $2.9 billion in revenue. We're very large, and so it's a small component on the size of our budget. We don't plan on recommending this starting until March 1st. So even though we're going to council on Thursday, we wouldn't recommend any implementation until the beginning of March. And we believe this investment really gets kind of those near-term needs that Rudy talked about. We are very conscious in terms of what this means for our customers, who are most in need or have been hurt, from the pandemic. We have what's called our Affordability Discount Program. It's an income qualifying program, but we recognize there's a lot of conversations to have with our rate advisory committee, our board of trustees, and with city council about rate equity, about utility burden. These are all topics that we have heard, from our community that are important to them. So we recognize these are long-term policy conversations we need to have, but we still want to do something for those customers in the near term. So one of the recommendations as part of this request is to do two things with the Affordability Discount Program. Number one, increase it so that it offsets the base rate components of the increase. So what this means is the current discount is about $12.30. We'll increase it to about $16.14 per month for customers who qualify. The other thing we want to do is increase the span of this program. We know that there are a lot of customers that may still qualify for our affordability programs that they just aren't signed up. So we're recommending increasing the enrollment by 14,000 customers to get up to a total of 65,000 customers in this program. And so that's one of the things we're trying to do to mitigate the forward impact to customers who are most in need. I will mention, and Rudy talked about this, the city of San Antonio did recommend $20 million in federal funding that Rudy talked about, which is pretty significant. For customers who qualify for the Affordability Discount Program, we talk about folks, how can we do a rate request? People still have past due bills. Well, this is a tool, this federal funding that the city gave us that they approved in November, is one of those tools to help pay off those past due accounts for customers who qualify. So as Rudy mentioned, encourage anyone who thinks they can qualify to call in, because we do want to do our part, and we do want to give a big thank you to our council members today for that vote. That was pretty significant, so thank you. We often get asked what's included. Well, there are four kind of key areas that the incremental dollars will go towards. The first one, it's labeled infrastructure resiliency, but basically this is investments into our infrastructure in the city that'll help us bounce back from any type of significant, weather event. So it could be investments in our communications to ensure we can talk to you while there's a severe event going on, and we can talk to you before it happens so you can prepare. Whether it be investment in the technology that allows us to rotate our outages in a more balanced way, or whether it's an investment into our power plants to help make sure that they're prepared for both extremes, hot or cold, because we know now that we've got extreme hot and cold situations that we're going to be experiencing here. So that's, 31 million of that 73 million will be going towards that. And then the other three items are the things we talked about. I talked about technology, aging, 15 million of that is going to go into making initial investments there. A little bit towards supporting growth. And this really, the things that you and I would see would be when we replace poles and wires and meters in our neighborhood as the community continues to grow. And then investing in people. We have about 400 vacant positions. We're down from 8 years ago from our last rate request. We actually have 350 less employees. And we're hurting at the front line. Transmission operators, distribution operators, engineers, folks in the control rooms, the folks you don't really see a day in and day out, those are the folks that we're short that we need to begin to hire up on. And part of this request will go towards staffing up. So the second part of this request that I alluded to earlier and we talked about and Rudy mentioned was the fuel cost for Winter Storm Uri. As I mentioned, $418 million is what we have had vetted by an independent third party as reasonable that we have paid. That's important to know. We've used short-term credit and our cash on hand to pay, but it's a short-term solution. We haven't recovered any of those dollars yet from any of our customers, and there's no state funds available or federal funds to help us, pay for this. Our only source of revenue is our customers. But we said to ourselves, through the lens of, managing affordability to our customers, we do not want to pass all that cost through at one time. That's a lot of money. That's a half a year's worth of fuel. And the only mechanism we have to recover it is through what you see on your bill as a fuel adjustment line item. So we're recommending spreading this cost over 25 years, which would be about $1.26 impact to an average residential electric and gas customer. If you look at the rest of Texas and the surrounding states, there have been over 60 proposals by other utilities to increase rates to pass through for fuel. Ours is the most modest out there. The average impact is about $11. So we wanted to be as thoughtful as we could to our customers in managing through this amount. The remaining $587 million, we haven't paid it, and we're not asking our customers to pay for it. So when you hear the headlines about that $1 billion, just know CPS hasn't paid for the part we're disputing, and we're not asking any of our customers to pay for it. We're going to let those play out over time, in the courts, which we hope we're successful. And so when you put it all together, if you're a customer, yeah, fingers crossed. Absolutely. When you put it all together here on this slide, you see the two components put together. You see the base rate component has about a $3.84 per month bill impact. Now, as I mentioned, for folks that qualify for the affordability discount program, this would be completely offset for you. So this would not, you would not feel that impact. However, the fuel cost for Winter Storm Uri I mentioned is $1.26. So we add together, that's the $5.10 that we had talked about from a total bill impact of what you will feel. And this is probably the most important slide if I'm a customer wanting to know what's going to happen to my bill. What I will mention, we do have on our website, cpsenergy.com/ratecase. We actually have a bill estimator tool, which is pretty cool. We haven't had that before. So we know that not everyone's the average user. So if you want to log in and look at your bill and put in your usage, you'll be able to kind of see what your unique situation would look like, or if you got different usage in different seasons and so forth. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. So I talked about our affordability discount program. Be remiss if we didn't mention that we have a lot of other programs as well to help out our customers. So this slide deck will be available, but we do have other programs like our senior citizen billing program, critical care billing, our residential electric assistance program, also known as REAP. That's a program available for folks. CPS Energy Angels, this is a really great program. If you know someone who needs help and you want to call in on their behalf and help pay, cover their bill, that's an option. And we have, a variety of opportunities for folks to get on budget billing programs, flexible installment plans, things like that. So if you need help, call us. We have folks that'll put you on a program that fits your need. As Rudy will say, if you're ever concerned about being disconnected, don't call us. We will work something out and help our customers out. To date, Rudy mentioned this number a lot too. We've helped customers with over $43 million, for any type of kind of other needs they may have. So we are here to help as best we can. I'm not sure how many folks, are businesses versus small businesses on the line versus just kind of individual customers, but the rate increase also applies to all of our businesses throughout the community. You see our electric different customer groups and our gas customer groups. You see a similar, basic impact for these customers between the 3.6 and 3.8% for them. We do get a lot of small business customers typically on these calls. So you can see kind of what the average dollar impact would be if you're a small business, about $20 a month. Again, if you're a small business, that bill estimator online is another tool that works for commercial accounts as well. So that's an option. So from a timeline perspective, I'm close to wrapping up here, and then we can open the last half hour for questions. We've had our rate advisory committee. They, back in December, voted to support us with a 12-8 vote, I think it was, in support. And then our citizens advisory committee recommended to support. our request last week by unanimous vote. And then today we had our Board of Trustees. We recommended this to them. They supported it 5-0. It was a pretty thorough conversation, but I think they shared a lot of the concerns that our community has shared, and we are committed, and Rudy's committed to making sure that on a go-forward basis, we continue to remain transparent, take those recommendations, follow through with them, and so forth. And we'll be back to City Council on Thursday this week to do a similar presentation to our council members and request their consideration as well. And so I just put some of this slide just has some of the links to where you can find information on what the Rate Advisory Committee has looked at. There's a lot of detailed information out there, similar information that we shared with City Council and our board. Here's the link to our systems programs, the bill estimator, and other events that we have going on. So it's 6:30 here, so I will pause and turn it back over to you, Councilman. And if there are any questions, Rudy and I are here to answer.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I am unable to see any constituent questions. Would one of you mind?
Yes, sir.
Being an average customer who may not have a full understanding of the high billed fuel costs presented, if we had the outages, no power being used by extended periods of time, what extra fuel costs were incurred, and when the outages offset use? And that question is from Amelia.
Well, I'll go ahead and take that. And we've spent close to $1 billion in fuel that week of Winter Storm Uri. Over the course of a year, we spend $1 billion for fuel for our whole system for the whole year. And so, number one, not everybody's power was out. Number two, we still have a gas system that we were feeding fuel into to try to, for those who have gas to their homes, about 350,000 customers or so that, and that really was a huge driver of what our fuel expense was, just keeping gas in our gas pipes. So the fact is, every amount of generation that we had available was running to try to help the rest of San Antonio and the rest of the state of Texas get out of the supply issue that we were facing. So certainly, I recognize that not everybody had power at that time. Again, if you didn't have power, you didn't get billed for that week. But as a system, we did incur expenses trying to help, the grid get out of the situation that we were in. And the only place we have to go, to get reimbursed for those costs is our customers. We've held on to that cost over the course of the year, trying to come up with a reasonable way to be able to recover that. And so, those conversations have happened with the city, and we find ourselves here, with the solution to try to thoughtfully address that issue, those issues in an affordable manner. So yes, I recognize some folks did not have power, but those fuel costs were system costs in our effort to try to help the grid get out of the situation that we were in.
Thank you, Rudy, and thank you so much, Amelia, for that question. For everybody else watching, please remember that Ernesto Garza is an energy advisor with CPS. He's in the chat. If you're in need of any assistance, please don't hesitate to send him a DM, a message. And if you have any questions, questions or comments, please put them in the chat.
Councilman, I was sent some questions beforehand. Would you like for me to run through those? Okay.
Oh, that'd be
excellent. Okay, so I'm going to run through them one by one. Why increasing rates? Why were we increasing rates while minimum wage stays the same, especially for state employees who are barely managing their bills, no incentives, no bonuses, working during the pandemic, essential employees who live paycheck to paycheck, for all of the low-income families? How's it feasible for the poor community, while you can sleep at night knowing you're taking more from the poor? Well, what I would say is we have a job to do at CPS Energy, and our job is to have the resources that we need to serve our community. We don't look at we try to keep our rates affordable and our service reliable, but there's a cost to doing business that is associated with providing that service. We are trying our best to take care of those who can least afford to pay. As Cory mentioned, our affordability discount is being increased. So, we're really offsetting the cost. If you're making minimum wage, you should be, eligible for our affordability discount. So I would encourage you to call us and let us talk to you about the options that we have. But to the extent that we do, we're trying to offset the rate increase for those most vulnerable. So that affordability piece is always a component of how we address rate increases, with our community to ensure that we're taking care of those most vulnerable. We are certainly as concerned about those who can least afford to pay as the city council and members of the community are. So that's how I'd answer your question. That was question number one. Question number two, people who relied on CPS with all sorts of health issues were left without power and water since SAWS relied on CPS as well. During these rolling power outages to save the grid from collapsing, why were huge empty buildings like the Alamo Dome and the Christmas lights downtown more essential to leave on than family homes? That's actually a great question, and it's a really good opportunity for us to talk about some of the things that we've done. The area downtown is on a different type of network. It's got 2 or 3 different systems that help make that one of the most reliable pieces of our system. There's a lot of critical infrastructure downtown. We don't have the ability to turn off a building at the meter, so I can't. Our people can't send a signal to the meter to cut off a big office building. So we have to work directly with those business owners to ask them to turn off the lights so that we can use that power to service our residential customers. Going forward, we have begun what we're calling our Energy Action Network. It's a network that when we are in a situation like that, we can reach out to all the business, customers in our community and ask them to voluntarily turn off their lights so that we can conserve power and have more power, for the general population at the residential level. I remember during the winter storm, I called my friends at UTSA, said, "Hey, would you mind turning off your field lights? We need to conserve." And we were making calls like that all over town, and a lot of our business customers actually responded by doing exactly what we asked them to do, and those efforts helped us get out of the event quicker. But we're developing a network going forward that will allow us to kind of hit a button and do a call to action for all those businesses that don't need to be on at that time, so that we can work in partnership with our community to get out of the event as quickly as we can. A couple more questions, and then I see some questions in the chat. You went from asking for a 10% increase for current and future needs down to 3.3% for the current needs. How much of that $20 million that you received from the federal government through the city, obviously, is going towards this? Well, the $20 million that we received from the city is going to directly offset those past due balances that I talked about that we're trying to address that aren't part of this rate increase. Originally, at the 10% number, we had included recovery of what was about $100 million, that we thought we needed to go ahead and put in there so we could address. But with the $20 million, we paused and pulled that amount out so that we could actually program the $20 million, which certainly helps CPS Energy's financial situation and allows us to bring that cost down, to the 3.85% or so. So absolutely, that $20 million did help CPS Energy, with our overall financial picture. And again, I want to thank the city for, and that's helped to CPS Energy, but ultimately it's a help to our customers. And that's really the important aspect of that particular ask. The last question, and then I'll start with the chat questions. It seems like solar power and wind power failed us. Those are only great in the heat of the summer. They froze up in the freeze and were not very effective. Fossil fuels are the most dependable energy. Did you not store enough of this, and why not? Well, battery storage, we really don't have a lot of battery storage in our system. So the storage, we make power as our customers are using it. When the amount of power being used goes up, we generate more power. When the power goes down, we pull some of our power plants offline that aren't necessary. In the winter months, renewables really aren't factored into the mix because we don't expect them to be there. When there's cloud cover, when it's cold, a lot of times the winds turbines will freeze up. There's no sun, so the solar panels aren't producing. So we have to plan to be able to get our power from elsewhere. I will tell you, we have done a lot of work this year to make sure that we have more natural gas in storage, that we can pull more natural gas storage, more natural gas out of storage during those times when we really need it. We've done some things financially to protect ourselves from some of those high prices that we saw in February. So I can promise you that we have done everything that is financially reasonable for our customers to try to prepare ourselves, for this coming winter. And I'll say the maintenance that we normally do of our power plants in February and March, we've now pulled. We're not going to be doing any maintenance of our power plants during those times when we expect it to be the coldest. And, we've pulled that up to October, November. All of our power plant maintenance is done. Our power plants are online and ready to go. And we made it through this first cold snap really, really nicely. So that's how I would respond to that particular question. Renewables are really good, and we're committed. We're the #1 solar purchaser of energy in Texas, #5 in the nation. We're in the top 3 or 4 purchasers of wind power. We are certainly supporters of renewables, and we will buy more. But we also have to have generation to back that up when it's not available to ensure that we're providing our service in a reliable manner. So I'm going to go ahead and move over, Councilman, to the questions in the chat. When will CPS Energy admit to and do something about unfair burden on residential ratepayers? What concrete commitments can be made to expand assistance programs, work to close the Spruce coal plant, and bring about a fair rate structure? Well, I have been in front of council a number of times already. The rate advisory committee, which is a critical, input to the board, they will immediately pivot towards looking at overall generation portfolio to make some recommendations. We know we have to make some decisions about Spruce. Those decisions have to be made by our board. They have to be made thoughtfully and look at the entire picture of what we want our generation mix to look like, what we can afford, what's reliable, but what's also the most environmentally responsible. And I expect that the board will be able to take action over the next 12 months on what to do about Spruce and more importantly, what to do long term to make sure we have the power we need to power San Antonio. The rate advisory committee is also looking at our rate structure to look at different ways that they can structure how we recover revenue. You can recover revenue all kinds of different ways. We do it the traditional way based on a cost of service model. We look at how our residential customers use power, how our commercial customers use power. We allocate costs based on, how our customers are using power. And overall, in total, commercial customers pay a little bit more than what we calculate their cost of service to actually be. Residential customers pay a little bit less. As Cory showed you earlier, the impact on residential customers is about 3.3%. The impact on commercial customers is about 3.6, 3.7%. So we factor those into, at the moment in our current rate structure, but we know that the community is interested in having more conversations about utility burden. And so again, we've committed to having that conversation, to bringing some options to the board, to city council ultimately, that look at our rate structure going forward. So I can commit to you that's going to happen in over the next 6 to 12 months. Melissa, a couple of other questions here. A president of our Rose Hill neighborhood in D2, why are we not finding other means of funding to help the updates and needs of CPS Energy? Well, there is no funding outside of our customers. We asked the state legislature in Austin this past legislative session to consider some funding to help offset these costs so we didn't have to pass it on to our customers. The legislature didn't, provide any type of support in this regard. So, nor does the federal government. We did get some money from the federal government that went through the city for utility assistance, but there's no direct appropriation that's made to CPS Energy, for that purpose. So at the end of the day, we're fighting, the costs that we think are unjust. But every other, amount of investment that we need, we only have our customers to ask for it, which is why we try to be so thoughtful about what we're asking for and why, and the timing of it all. So there is no other funding source but our customers for these type of investments. Why was there no community input on this issue at hand? We have been working with the community on input. We've attended. We've put on close to 40 events now on this particular issue. We've done direct outreach to close to 19,000 customers. We've sent text messages and emails and voicemails to, over 700,000 customers. So all of that, it really seeks to provide, community input. I got a question the other day from one of the council members at a different town hall. Why don't we put this to a vote? Well, our governance model is, our board considers these type of requests, and council, goes to council for a vote. So, what I would tell you is, council members are elected to represent their constituents. They represent, them with the decisions that they make every day on council. And so, we have to follow the process and trust in the process. And that process will conclude one way or the other on Thursday in a vote at City Council. But our governance model is such that it takes both our board and council agreeing that there's a need, in investing in CPS Energy. Over the 8 years or so we've been in business, that's worked really well, overall for the community and certainly for the job CPS Energy is asking us to do. Where's the compassion for the seniors who are on set incomes? We have a senior citizen program that I would tell everybody who is eligible to contact us on. There are all kinds of programs and available assistance for our seniors. So certainly, when we look at the overall bill impact, we recognize that there are customers on fixed income that we have to provide assistance for as well. So certainly, the impact on our seniors is something, again, we started 10%, we're now down at 3.85. That is completely in recognition that we got to have these conversations more frequently and make sure that the amount we're asking for is an amount we think is reasonable. Last question here, or maybe there's a couple more. Mr. Garza, Mr. Kuchinsky stated that CPS Energy does not have control over fuel costs and authority over ERCOT. It appears to me that this was the case for CPS. What tools or options do you have in buying fuel for the future today? Does CPS understand the significance of a severe winter storm? Do you talk to other states such as Oklahoma, Colorado, New Mexico concerning weather events? And will the approach be that an event such as Winter Storm Uri will never happen again? Well, the reality of Winter Storm Uri never happened over the course of 25 years in my career, and I certainly hope it never happens again over whatever time I've got left, in my career in this industry. I would expect, given the impacts of climate change and everything that we're seeing around the world, that there will continue to be extreme weather events. I think CPS Energy will be more prepared going forward because of our experience this last time. But the entire central United States was in the same situation we were in. Oklahoma, New Mexico, going all the way up to Canada, there were outages spread all over that central U.S. because of the ice and the snow that blanketed that whole area. So certainly we contract for an amount of fuel that we expect in a given year, and then we try to make contingencies for any fuel above and beyond that. There's always going to, in these cases, our load was exponentially higher than any given kind of regular winter day. And so there's going to be some amount of fuel that we're going to have to purchase on the open market. What we try to do is limit that so we don't overexpose, our customers to what happened in February. And again, this event taught us that we've got to do more of that. But when we try to deal with the risk associated with a fuel event like that, the instruments we use to try to protect our customers, those cost money too. So there's a balance between, trying to figure out based on the forecasts that we see, what we expect to happen, and then doing a little more than that to make sure we're covered in the case that it's worse. What we saw was an event that was 5 times worse than anything we'd ever experienced in the state of Texas. So this wasn't just a little bit worse than what we expected. This was a lot worse than anything we'd ever seen in the state of Texas. And so certainly there's a lot to learn from what happened in February, but I do believe CPS Energy is ready for an event like that in the future. So yes, man, we have done a lot and taken a lot of input from the community on what you expect us to do better going forward. Let's see here. Question from Ms. Millie Devno. What steps will CPS Energy be taking to ensure communication remains open to those critical care residents, such as those needing, medical equipment? So we have, and Cory flashed the program, we have a critical care customer program that, quite frankly, a lot of people who are on a medical life-sustaining equipment, for whatever reason, haven't called us to tell us they're on that medical equipment. If you just call 210-353-2222, we can note on your account that you have some life-sustaining equipment in your home, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to have an outage. But when you have an outage, if you have an outage, we will call you to check on you and figure out, what can we do to make sure that you're safe? Do we need to arrange for transportation to a hospital? Do we need to talk to you about maybe going to a family member's home and arrange for transportation? So it's important for us to know that there's something going on in the house that we have to pay, better attention to. So I would just encourage everybody, if you have not signed up yet with CPS Energy, all it takes is really a form from your doctor that says you're on oxygen or on a dialysis machine or whatever the case might be, and we can make sure that we designate you as such. Man, they're coming fast and furious now, councilman and councilwoman. Let's see here. All right. I'm fully vested in the community solar program. I took early withdrawal of IRA to invest in CPS Energy going solar and was disappointed to be considered expendable during URI. When will CPS meet consumer demands by expanding community solar programs, please? The initial community solar programs were really kind of pilots. We didn't understand how big that market was, because, again, we've been testing different types of solar products. CPS Energy offers our customers solar in every way you can get it. We are actually in the process of beginning to look at additional solar for San Antonio. We've committed to 900 megawatts of additional solar through our Flex Power Bundle initiative. We should be contracting here in the near future for another 200 megawatts, and we've agreed to look at another 700 megawatts beyond that for a total of 900 megawatts. As part of that, there's some distributed solar for programs like community solar that we will continue to offer. What we had was really a pilot. We now need to look at, okay, what is a broader, more sustainable, longer-term community solar program look like? But what we do know is that there's certainly a demand, and I do believe that's a program that the community can look forward to, in the future. So certainly we are committed to continuing to offer solar, every way that we can. Councilman, we're at 6:56, and I want to give you and Councilwoman Villagran an opportunity for some closing comments. My team will take a look at the questions that are still in the chat, and we will get responses to those. But I did want to leave some time because I know we need to move into the Spanish version of this town hall, and just see if either one of you had any questions or any closing comments.
Thank you so much. I do not have any questions at the moment. I think this has given a lot to think about, and I know my constituents were listening and were paying very close attention, and I look forward to continuing to work with each of them and to working with you. Regardless of how the vote turns out on Thursday, I think it's clear that a lot needs to be done to rebuild the trust with City Council, with CPS, and with the community. And so, constituents, you have my commitment. Councilman Phyllis.
Yeah, I want to thank all the constituents that entered in questions. My residents from Mission Del Lago, I will make sure CPS addresses your issues. We saw firsthand what happened there and how long it took to make sure everybody was on the right page to turn everything back on. We learned a lot from that, but it was a very difficult learning process. I think what we need to consider as we move forward is this is a new era in CPS with a new leadership. And what does that mean in terms of accountability? And we're working hard on that rate structure from the council. I'm asking for it all the time in terms of how we consume and how we integrate the solar program also. So I want to thank y'all for y'all's participation. Please continue to send the emails. I will be talking with Rudy and his team before the vote on Thursday, and we'll take the suggestions that you have given us. So I appreciate y'all so much for being here this evening, all your efforts. When the community comes together, we come through with stronger solutions. So thank y'all so much for this time.
Thank you. Thank you for having us tonight. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much.